So I'm going to let you guys in on a little guilty pleasure of mine. I love award shows. I really do. I love award shows. I love the glamour. I love the drama. I love the dresses. I love all those girly things that people love about award shows. I really do, except for the Grammys, because everyone and their mother has a Grammy. There are like 19,000 different categories in the Grammys. If you haven't won an album, like a Grammy for Best Spoken Word Album, like you're just not really trying all that hard. But I digress. I generally love award shows. Except for I know the exact moment where this started to change. And it was back at the 2018 Golden Globes with this big Oprah Winfrey Time's Up speech. I swear to God, I remember this. I remember sitting on my couch going, why are these women ruining award shows and really trying to just glom on to the Me Too movement to do their own thing? I was actually really annoyed by this because this is what happened at the 2018 Grammys. Like, all the women dressed in black. It was incredibly boring, but also like super pretentious at the same time. Like, you're going to dress up in these boring black gowns that cost tens of thousands of dollars and are probably custom made for you in order to protest your working conditions that led you to being at an award show where you're dressing up and wearing gowns that cost tens of thousands of dollars. I just didn't get it at all. But this was the moment for me where award shows really started just like really annoying me more than anything else. Let's just go down memory lane with me for a second. Oprah Winfrey on Time's Up. Where do we go from here? This was an article that came out after that 2018 Golden Globe speech. Oprah Winfrey delivered a much acclaimed speech on behalf of the Time's Up campaign at last Sunday's Golden Globes, a 60-minute special contributor since last fall. She takes stock this morning with other members of the movement. Even before the first award was handed out last Sunday's Golden Globes, the Time's Up campaign had already won the night. Time's Up, which began as a meeting of Hollywood women last fall to address sexual harassment in the workplace, has become a movement for victims everywhere. Stars wore black as a sign of unity, and for one dazzling moment, the fight against harassment and gender inequality was center stage. And thus, the Time's Up organization made its way into the public consciousness. So let's see where Time's Up is today. Here is their website, and I've just gone to the Our Work section of it. Time's Up apparently has a lot of goals. Let's just take a look real quick. They want safety, insisting everyone is safe at work, equity, leveling the playing field, which we really know that equity is not about leveling the playing field, but I digress. Power, disrupting the status quo, as if a lot of rich people in Hollywood are really interested in disrupting the status quo. Changing culture so harassment and inequality are no longer tolerant. Changing companies so work is safe and equitable everywhere. Changing laws and policies. You notice these are like really vague statements, but they sound really good and, dare I say, even virtue signaling. We're changing policies to improve women's lives. Oh, so now we're focusing on women's lives when I thought work was supposed to be safe for everyone. But hey, whatever. In workplaces across the country, across the world, in Congress, across the federal government, in state legislatures around the country. Again, it kind of sounds like they're saying the same thing over and over and over again, and they've got all these different initiatives. They have the Legal Defense Fund, Impact Lab, entertainment, healthcare, tech, advertising, UK, Time's Up 2020. They're apparently doing a lot of stuff, but don't really have that much to show for it, as we now know from this article in the New York Post, which came out yesterday, or 2 days ago rather, on November 28th, star-studded Time's Up charities spent big on salaries, little on helping victims. And is anyone really surprised by this revelation that Time's Up is more about looking good than actually doing good? Nope, not surprised at all. Let's see what's going on. Hollywood's Time's Up organization, set up to fight sexual harassment with Reese Witherspoon, Amy Schumer, Brie Larson, and other luminaries on its board, spent the bulk of its donations on executive salaries and only a fraction on legal costs to help victims, public records show. The organization, which was comprised of Time's Up Foundation and Time's Up Now, raised $3.6 million in 2018, its founding year, but spent $1.4 million on salaries and only $312,000 on Time's Up Legal Defense Fund for people who have experienced sexual harassment. Charity watchdogs groups such as Charity Navigator recommends that nonprofits spend 75% of their revenues on their mission and 25% on administration. Time's Up spent 38% on salaries alone. Okay, so fun fact, the deal with nonprofits in how they distinguish from for-profits is it's actually really simple. Nonprofits just don't make a profit. And what they need to do, and this is actually a problem for colleges sometimes when they function as a nonprofit college, but they are actually doing really well in terms of enrollment. They have to spend a boat ton of money. They have to spend it because they can't, by their very definition, turn a profit. So what some colleges do when they have this excess of funds is you'll see like all of a sudden there's a new stadium or a new dorm or something like that they don't really need, but they need to spend the money somehow, or they're hiring a whole bunch of new diversity professionals like The Ohio State University, which I documented yesterday on this channel. So they have to spend the money somewhere. If they aren't actually spending it on their mission, where does it go? Well, here's the question I have for Time's Up. Why aren't they spending that $3.6 million on the mission? Why aren't they focusing it there? Why are they doing so little that they're just paying their executive salaries? I mean, it makes no sense. And by the way, guys, you'll see this with a lot of people who have like political movements, let's just say, who rake in a boat metric F ton of donations and then don't do anything in the course of the election cycle in terms of rallies or events or things like that. You see, Walkaway was out there every single week doing rallies every single week. You know, if you donated to Walkaway, and I'm thankful if you did because you helped, people like me have security and things like that, but I'm really thankful for that. But you can also see that we were out there doing stuff every single week. Think about some of these people who are big names in the right, the conservative movement, all these things that rake in a metric boat ton of money and then never do anything with it, except maybe occasionally stage an event where they're flying people in to have a big rally at the White House where they're all wearing the same t-shirts. Walkway didn't do that. Walkway actually had people come to our rallies because we wanted people to come to our rallies. Anyway, I digress. Let's get back to Time's Up. Time's Up now, the lobbying arm of the organization, also spent $157,000 on conferences designed to build the community and spark critical conversations about gender equity tax filings show. In June 2018, the group co-sponsored a retreat at the Ojai Valley Inn, a luxury resort and spa north of Los Angeles. The retreat was dominated by agents from the Creative Artists Agency who apparently had difficulty deciding on what the core mission should be. And now we see that. I mean, we can clearly see that. They don't even know what their core mission is, which is why they have all these different sections and all these different themes about what they've been doing. They pivoted from let's clean up Hollywood to we're going to help all workers, says an attendee at this little spa retreat who did not want to be identified. According to tax filings, the mission of Time's Up now is to promote safe, fair, and dignified work standards for women of all kinds. We work to make sure that women are free from harassment and other forms of discrimination on the job and have equal opportunity for economic security and can achieve the highest positions of power wherever they work. And, it's also funny because there are a lot of organizations out there that were already doing this work. I have to wonder why Time's Up all of a sudden decided to kind of form on its own and not actually work with anyone that had already been doing this work for years. It's not as though, spoiler alert, guys, it's not as though sexual harassment in the workplace just popped up at the Me Too movement. The Me Too movement was a response to stuff that's always existed in the workplace. And you can have your feelings about the Me Too movement, but as someone that did an awful lot of work with investigators investigating these sorts of things, that movement was an absolute necessity. It's gone off the rails since then. It doesn't mean much of anything now, but that movement was an absolute necessity that did actually result in positive changes in many work environments where all of a sudden employers felt obligated to bring in outside investigators when these types of claims were reported, whereas before that they didn't. Now, when you bring in outside investigators, they know how to do their job, they know how to ask the right questions, and 90% of the time when you're bringing in an outside investigator, what ends up happening is the person who was accused of harassment ultimately ends up admitting that they did something wrong. That is the fact. I don't care if you guys don't like it. That is actual facts. 90% of the time when an outside investigator is brought in, the person who was the reason they were brought in admits to some or all of what they were accused of. That is just reality. Anyway, so here's what I want to say. When you see stuff like this that's led by Hollywood, people who literally put on a show for a living, you have to know that really not much of anything is going to come of it. And this is true of anything, literally anything that you are asked to give money to. pay attention to what is done with that money. Pay attention to what they're actually doing. Time's Up is essentially irrelevant because they've made themselves irrelevant. They haven't done anything with the money, just like many political movements that you saw sprout up under Trump, just like really any charity out there. So be careful where you put your money because you never know like who's actually going to do something with it and who's not. But you have to pay attention to people's actions. Don't pay attention to their words. Don't pay attention to their pretty websites and their nice branding materials because really, this doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. It's all about what people do with it, and I don't think really many people are surprised by this revelation that Hollywood is really good at putting on a show, but not really good at backing it up. All right, guys, that's all I've got for this one. If you enjoyed this video, I do daily content, sometimes a couple videos a day, about different news, politics, culture, issues that I find interesting to talk about. If you like what I'm doing, I hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel, turning on notifications, giving it a thumbs up if you want any hope of YouTube actually recommending my stuff to you. That's all I've got for right now. I'll see you soon.